Good morning and happy blessed Friday. I was thinking about the part of parenting that sometimes you don't get the opportunity to think about. So let me back up. Sometimes a child comes from a relationship and they weren't necessarily planned. And I think when you're younger, the likelihood of that happening is greater than when you're older. Not to say that it doesn't happen as you get older. And I caution you, anyone in relationship, to really get to know who you're with, knowing that things could happen and things do happen. And I say this because parenting can be a bumpy road. Bumpy in that you have two different people from two walks of life coming together to now think about what's best for this child. And that doesn't mean that things are going to go smooth or you're always going to agree. The idea is that you can compromise for the safety of your child. And safety is so many different things, and I'm not going to dive right into what all those things entail. So I'll give you a little background. For me, I grew up in a two-parent household. And I thought for so long that that was everyone's experience until I realized it wasn't. I thought that everyone came from the same parents. I thought all parents lived in the same house. And to my surprise, and very naively, that wasn't the experience of a lot of people. That they had other siblings from other relationships, but they didn't have their mother and their father and all their siblings in the same home. And my experience was I had both parents, my mother and my father, and all my siblings were from the same two parents. So fast forward, and the only example I can give you are those of personal examples. Well, my son, he has two sisters. They all have the same dad, but everyone has different moms. And our lived experience was initially wanting to be in the same household, and things happened, and it didn't work out. And so now I was faced with bringing together two ideas and two different parenting perspectives to raise this one child that I created with someone. Was it always smooth? Absolutely not. But what it took was two mature adults being able to hash those differences out and not in front of the child to come up with the best solution for him, for the child. And I've heard horror stories of people who couldn't agree with someone on making a decision or argued and fought over very little things. And I tell you, there's strength in numbers, and that it takes a village to raise a child. So when I hear people say they want to have a kid and they don't need someone to have that child, it pains me because my experience was not that. Granted, we didn't stay together in that intimate relationship, but we had a deep, intimate relationship for the sake of our child as parents. And one thing I was really set on was that I didn't want my son to feel like his parents didn't like each other and couldn't be around each other. And I was against having two different birthdays. Of course, holidays had to be compromised and split. That's what happens when you have a child going between two homes. But the concept of celebrating a child and having several different celebrations was just silly. And going to court was not something that I felt like was conducive to the relationship of of the current relationship or that it was beneficial. I mean, the law is in everyone else's lives in different ways. And so if there was a way that we could manage to raise this child without having to go to court over silly things, well, then why not? We were two adults. And so we did not go to court. We did not do child support through the courts. And we didn't bicker and fight and air out dirty laundries or disagreements. We figured out a way to work that out. Now, that's just my experience. I can't speak for everyone. And the point that I'm making is that two is better than one. No one woman, if she has an option, should have to carry that load by herself, and or no man should have to carry that weight on his own. That there is something that mother and father add to that child, different perspectives, different understandings. And I can't help but think about people who don't have that option. What about the people where one parent has passed away or both parents have passed away and the child is in the system or with a family member, or someone walks away and decides to give up their rights as a parent? The result of that I've seen are people who are hurting, and turn around and go through a process of hurting so much that they end up hurting other people or hurting themselves. And so if you're in a bad space with that other parent, figure out what the root cause of the issue is and come to some type of clarity and understanding in order to join forces and be the absolute best parents that you can be. I'm guaranteeing you that when you look down the road and look at the things you were arguing about, they will have absolutely no legs to stand on. And there will be points where you will regret it. Look at the difference between a young woman who has a mother in her life versus one who doesn't. And look at a young man who's had a father in his life versus one who has not, or a young woman who hasn't had a father versus one who has, a young man who's had a mother versus one who has not. There are striking differences. And I'm not just talking about a physical presence. I'm talking about active, loving, caring, kind, balancing parents, healthy relationships with your parents. So think about that if you're having children, or if you've had a child or children. Learning to put your differences aside, learning to compromise, learning to communicate, because you'll be better as a person and absolutely better as a parent. And you will teach your kids. You will teach the next generation, who will then teach the next generation. And I'm not saying that's an absence of mistakes, because when mistakes happen, be willing to do what's right, whether it be apologize, whether it be to sit down and hash things out, because whatever it is that you're modeling for your children, they too one day will turn around and mimic. Just a thought. Thank you for listening. I love you. Happy Blessed Friday.